Hey everyone, this is a SIGOT meeting for April 12th, 2022 for KMS. It's our 13th KMS meeting. I don't think we met last week, so what updates do folks have for us today? Christoph, did you want to go? I think you said you had some.
Yeah, so happily we have no issues. So I worked on the issue that was assigned to me, which was for the reference library. So there were a couple of tasks that I needed to do, and there was also a reference to the work of that Anish did previously. So I created a branch where we have kind of a local CAG which is rotated in certain circumstances, and we use ASGCM.
Right. So let's see. So I see you said that metrics are missing. So what did you work on implementing exactly? I see a decrypt service.
So I used the specification for the service and created one. And in between we have, so there are basically three files. One is ASGCM, where we encrypt and decrypt with ASGCM. And the second file is a file which is called managed, which basically maintains with the LRU cache, as Anish did, several versions of the keys, and we rotate them if necessary, or we can reinitiate old keys that we don't have in the cache, but we receive in the decryption request. And then the third one is basically wiring up to the servers. So I did number one, key generation for local cache. I did number two, rotation based on counter and weekly. Number three, encryption using ASGCM. With the metrics I didn't do yet. I added some logging, and I externalized the encryption for local CAG, which right now is just basically an interface where the person who implements it with the upstream KMS needs to specify.
Okay, so this is where like Azure Key Vault or whatever come in, right? The implementation.
Exactly. So Anish did a great work, but it was specific to one solution, which is great to have a proof of concept. But as I don't know how it would fit for all the possible implementations, I left it up to the user of the library.
Okay. So let's see, some high level questions I would have is how would we use this reference implementation in the situation where you don't want a key hierarchy?
With no key hierarchy, you mean specifically that if you were to use hardware token or something like that?
Say that again, Priscilla?
What do you mean by so we have, when wouldn't we have a key hierarchy?
Oh, when your externalized encryption is just like PKCS11 or whatever, and it's fast enough that you don't actually need the hierarchy.
What I just naively assumed is that that the upstream KMS would be just an abstraction where we would say either it's a real upstream KMS or it's it's a PXE 11 device that has that API. So this would then the next. So I would change it on that level. So I would not say, okay, the device does all the encryption and decryption, but I just thought it might make more sense to make it on the level of the upstream KMS and exchange those.
So for a plugin that actually doesn't do key hierarchy, the only thing that's relevant is 4 and 5, right? Like metrics and logging, nothing else.
And right. What I'm thinking though is if your library includes 1, 2, 3, and 6, basically how do you opt out of 1, 2, 3, and 6 in a way that is at least somewhat reasonably easy. Like I think having the key hierarchy is probably the correct default and is what most people would expect to happen if they want to have good performance with like cloud KMS style stuff. But I also kind of feel like in a sense, maybe there this 1, 2, 3, and 6 actually itself needs to be an interface, and the default implementation of that interface is what Christoph has already written. But then there's another implementation of that interface, which is basically just a complete pass-through. That kind of makes sense. It doesn't build a hierarchy. It doesn't make an accounting.
Yeah, so I assume that because maybe I didn't read myself too much into the HMS, how they work specifically, but for example, I have an YubiKey key where I have just a set of keys which I'm rotating like, I don't know, once a year or something like that, and I just and how to describe. So I assume basically it stores basically one key, and then it creates new keys, and then no, we can do it like that. We could also abstract it and then give the user the choice. But then it's when we abstract away the key hierarchy, it's the big. Yes, so I had just wrong assumptions that you can hold only a limited amount of keys in the HMS, and this is why I assumed it would be also beneficial to have a local key hierarchy, also in the case that we would have an HMS. But I might be wrong with that, because this is how I use my personal HMS, and this is why I decided to go that way. But we can definitely go forward without a key hierarchy. But then it's on such a different level of abstraction that most of the code doesn't need to be used, right? So we would need to have a complete new package where we just have a complete new implementation that just uses the services.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me nervous about always having a key hierarchy is then you are doing crypto in software. And I could see someone saying that, but like I have local hardware that is supposed to be doing the crypto. I don't want your software doing the crypto, right? I want my hardware doing the crypto. And and I want you to call it like, I want you to call it every time the API server calls encrypt. I want you to call my KMS directly. I don't want this indirection because like the hardware is local. You doing it in software is not meaningfully faster than me doing it in hardware. There's no network operations. It never leaves the box that it's on, which is sort of the more traditional use case with PKCS 11, right?
Yeah, this is definitely true. This might make sense. I mean, this makes sense.
I mean, if we think that use case isn't as important, we don't have to try to support it. I don't have numbers to prove that like that's an important use case to end users versus like we know the cloud stuff is important, right? Because everyone is using these different platforms, and we want all the cloud platforms to have this integration nicely done, so that way their users can use it and everybody benefits from it, whoever's using it.
But it's definitely a cool feature. I mean, in the very first implementation, I also started with the implementation of the Pix 11, so it wouldn't be that big of an effort, hopefully, to add another package that offers this, right? So, I mean, it's a very bad designed API because it's very verbose, but we could add it also as an alternative option, right?
Yeah, I was hoping that like we would have the reference library, but we would have a reference implementation that was PKCS 11, because that one is agnostic to any provider, right? It's really about a hardware interface that many like for example, our YubiKeys implement that, right? So we could use our YubiKeys as a
yeah, definitely. I can do this for the next week.
Okay, so I guess the ask would be, Yeah, I mean, I think it does complicate the implementation, but it also, I think, keeps us honest, right? It keeps us from overexerting a very strong opinion on key hierarchy, basically. Okay, cool. Do you have anything else you would like to discuss, Christoph? Any blockers that you have or anything like that?
No, definitely not. But I didn't have the opportunity to look into the other topic that Anish referred to, that I could take a look into it.
I had one question. So I think you said there were 3 files, right? And then the third one is wiring up with the service. So like, is that like an example implementation on how to use the library, or what was that?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just I just wanted to show the connect. So I just so the issue that I received. So there was a reference to the code that you wrote. So I just with the third file, I just wanted to show how it could be used with a service. So if someone else did it already, I'm happy to take over the part from
When
someone
you
else.
say service, Christoph, I think what you're saying is this is the implementation of the server side that the Kubernetes API server connects to, right? So the Kubernetes API server is a gRPC client, and this is
Exactly.
the gRPC server side of that, where you have the version API as well as decrypt and encrypt. As inside, which version is this V2 Alpha 1 API, the one we had sort of talked about?
Yeah, I just added this one, so that I wasn't really done with the service, because I was not sure how much I would tiptoe into the topics of other people. So I just finished it a couple of minutes ago and wanted to bounce forth and back with others to see what others think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I also opened a pull request for updating the proto here. Like I updated it in KK, but I also wanted to update here, so we have the latest.
okay. Maybe, so is anyone specifically working on the stub side, the server side of this, even if it is a stub, or is that just the only one that was working on it is Christoph? The reason I'm asking is Christoph could look at this, merge it, and then he could rebase his stuff on top of this and regenerate the server side and fill it out with his reference implementation. I think that's totally just fine. I don't think you're stepping on anyone, Christoph, because if I'm looking at the items that like are assigned to me, so for me, it's to look on the API server side on Anish's fork with the new V2 Alpha API and try to fix the stale semantics of that. And then similarly, Damien on the API server side is supposed to be looking at the health semantics. And then Rita's working on the KEP stuff. So I don't think you're stepping on anyone unless Anish has something that I don't know about.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean you managed. You could go ahead.
So I was going to say that, so in terms of what I have, like we had the initial POC, right? So where there were changes in the API server, and then for end-to-end validation, like all the stuff that we added in Key Vault. So like what I'm doing right now is I've updated the API server stuff with the new V2 Alpha 1 that Mo proposed for rotation. And then I'm also making corresponding changes in my Key Vault branch, which is still using whatever I have for generation of new keys and all that, just so that we can validate the end-to-end flow, right? But again, that is not conflicting with what Christoph is doing, like it's totally different. And then in addition to that, I'm trying to wire the new status RPC call to the storage version so we can actually see that hash. So we can basically see the hash when the plugin comes up, and then when rotation happens, we can see that. So I'm trying to validate that, and then hopefully I'll have that so we can see a demo of it working.
Okay. As an aside, SIG API machinery was canceled last week, so I did not ask them if they were okay, because there was no one to ask. But
they canceled even with the stuff on the agenda.
Yes, they canceled because I think too many folks were out, so like wasn't a critical mass to have the discussions, which is unfortunate. But also healthy, I think. I think people were very tired from the release activities. So sometimes people just need a break. Um, okay, cool. So let's see. Christoph is making good progress. Damien, did you have any updates on health stuff? Have you had a chance to look at anything?
I started looking into the code, but haven't yet figured out how to like change it to match our new needs. But I will do that later this week.
Okay, cool. And so Anish, you're looking at the, as you just mentioned, you're looking at storage version hash to see if you can wire that up. I would be curious to know how bad the diff is, because it looked like there was some bad assumptions in that code. Like you could easily locally figure out the hash, like kind of like instead of like having 18 layers of wiring coming in from like the KMS config.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to the diff, and I suspect that might be one of the pushbacks we get from API machiners saying like, it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be real ugly to wire that through.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'll have a demo by next week. So we can use that also while we write the KEP and for going to API machinery.
Okay, Rita, did you have anything in regards to the KEP?
No, I started it. I need to like just time to finish it and then share with the rest of you to update stuff. I have a stub, but it's not very useful right now. So
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, so I still need to look at the stale semantics. Okay. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about? And we could always quit early if we don't have any other discussion topics. Certainly people could use the time that they have allotted for this meeting to work on whatever item that they were assigned, which is totally cool. I dig that. All right, cool.
sounds good to me.
I don't hear anyone say anything. Is anyone blocked in any way, or does anyone need any help from anyone else? Just
I think we can merge that pull request so Christoph can use the latest proto, like that's what I'll say. But other than that, I'm not blocked on anything.
So we should review that PR, right?
yes. All right. So we should.
Okay,
I mean,
sounds
we can
good.
look at it real quick right now. I don't think it's that bad. Right? This is generated code, right? So
Yes.
I don't think we have to actually look at it. I'll assume you generated it, right? So there's a status request and response now. Health string, current key ID. Version. As an aside, I'm not that familiar with gRPC. Is this like a common pattern for every single API to just return a version, like as part of it? Is that like a thing that people do?
Not necessarily, at least based on my experience with CSI, they don't have a version with it. But I think KMS had it just to check the compatibility, right? But yeah, I haven't seen that with the other APIs.
Okay, it just seems weird to me. Like I didn't really understand what it was trying to accomplish, because like isn't the version isn't the version like part of like what the original version request and response, right? It had a version in it. Like isn't that sufficient? Like, do you have to keep saying every single sub API has the same version? I don't really understand what problem it was trying to prevent from happening.
Like the only thing I can think of is at some point, if the schema of the body that it returns, if it's abstract and if it changes, then basically like that version signifies the schema of that body that's being returned. So like if it was supporting like V1 alpha 1, which was JSON with a couple of fields, and then let's say this V2 alpha 1, which had JSON with additional fields, it's basically telling the client that like, hey, I've packaged it in this format. So if you need to read it, you can read it with this particular version. Like I've seen that in some of the new the container signing projects, like they have different schema versions, so they need to support multiple versions. So they need the server to say which version of the data format they're returning. But again, for KMS, I think it doesn't matter, because what we initialize the KMS plugin, once we initialize it with that proto, like we check that, and that is all it's being sent and received. So yeah, I don't know why version was that.
Okay, maybe as part of this, maybe we can propose
remove it.
removing it just to simplify the API and see if someone from Segato is like, oh no, here's the reason we felt like it was necessary.
Makes sense.
Are folks cool if I immerse this? Anyone got any issues? Live coding here. I'm gonna do it. It's right. Wrong email. Why is it there? Totally wrong email. Great. So the other thing I just remembered is I think I can make an issue for this unless someone tells me there's an issue already, which is I think we need an issue for the new storage format we are proposing. Right, we would be proposing changing the data stored in etcd to be a new proto format. And I don't think we've ever. I think we really tried to spec it out, but I think it follows directly from the gRPC API, because we're basically saying that we're gonna store the encrypted blob and some other stuff and this metadata in plain text. So it kind of follows from that. So I think that part is sort of clear, but we haven't tried to actually do that, right? No one is. I think Anish, maybe you had tried to do some stuff with Proto, but then ran into some issues or something.
Yeah, so like for my POC, it's now, if you look at my branch, it's just JSON.
Yeah, because it's easiest, right? It's just easier to just do JSON.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will make an issue, which is, what would it be? So it would be get a new proto storage format. Okay, and so I think anyone is free to pick this up if they wanted to. Did that other issue like close one of them? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I closed the issue too, because it's just duplicate of what Christoph's already doing.
Okay, cool. All right, does anybody have anything else, or should we call it and go do some KMS stuff? Oh, cool. Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.